Win big with new DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux kicking off the Lake Pick 4 at Santa Anita on Saturday with a potential prep for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. It's race number 7, and it's the Grade 3 Chillingworth. Before we take a look at the field, remember this nice deal for DRFTV viewers. Great opportunity to get 10% off all DRF past performances. Use the coupon code DRFTV10 and shop now by accessing the QR code on your screen. Here's the field for the Grade 3 Chillingworth. This is a very strong group, Ashley. You've got Sweet Azteca, arguably the leader of the division, along with Ways and Means on the East Coast, coming into this race off 4 consecutive wins, 3 triple-digit buyers, but she's going to have to deal with Hope Road, who's won her last 3 in impressive style for Bob Baffert.
Yeah, nice little matchup between these two. I think on paper they are the main two, but curious to see some others. One Magic Philly has been very good in her 3 career starts, and she just had a huge effort going 6.5 with a 98 buyer. Kirsten Bosch is a horse who, again, is one that had to face the likes of Adair Manor for a long part of her career, and she maybe gets, again, softer in some regard, but I don't think it's that much softer when we talked about the 2 big names in here. She's got a little bit more foundation being a 5-year-old mare, but when you look at Sweet Azteca, you look at Hope Road, I think maybe a little bit of the difference is, sure, they're both speedy, but I think Hope Road is fine, maybe sitting the trip just off of it. We know Sweet Azteca, she's pretty much going to go from the gate.
And let's see where our friends at Timeform US have them placed. After the opening quarter mile, they have Hope Road and Sweet Aztec, and even Any Who's also cross-entered at Keeneland this weekend, up close to the pace. It'll be interesting to see who takes the early lead. I know Baffert's horses like to be aggressive out of the gate, but you make a good point. Hope Road was able to relax eventually, going the mile last time out, and maybe turning back in distance, learn some lessons from that race.
It's going to be interesting to see the strategy of Kazushi Kimura, booked to ride Hope Road. Juan Hernandez was aboard last time, and look who he's aboard, Sweet Azteca. So very interesting, especially for Juan, who knows both of these fillies very well. We'll see what ends up happening in the pace. I guess it kind of depends. You look at Hope Road, she's coming out of a mile event, and maybe Sweet Azteca, I think, is just a tad quicker, but we'll come find out this weekend what actually happens.
Kirsten Bosch won this race last year against a weaker field. It's going to come off a little bit of a layoff. If this pace gets electric, she's got a puncher's chance as the horse with the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. Let's kick things off with a long shot. The number 1 Irish Wahine is a Calbred, and she's pretty cool. She's won 11 of 27 in her career. She absolutely loves Santa Anita, 6 for 9 over the surface. It's just that this seems like a very tough spot. Beaten 10 lengths by Sweet Azteca last time out at Del Mar. The pace wasn't very fast for her in that race. Maybe she'll get a little bit more to run at, but that's a lot of lengths to improve.
Going to need to take a big step forward. I think the thought process of bringing her in here was Sweet Azteca was 7 in front, but she really wasn't too far off of the others, Anywho and Chismosa, and maybe that's why they decided to put her in here. And even if she gets 4th, she can pick up a little bit of money and get some, more experience under her belt. I just think these waters are too deep for her. I'd love to see her in a Calbred race if there was one for her, especially even at the 6.5 furlong distance. She's been okay at this distance. I just think it's a little bit much for her. She's been no match for Sweet Azteca in 2 of those last 3.
Hope Road, the number 2, began her career with trainer John Sadler, switched over to Baffert, was given plenty of time to mature, and she certainly has in her last 3 races. Her most recent start was the Torrey Pines against fellow 3-year-olds going a 2-turn mile. She broke sharp as usual. Hernandez got her to relax a little bit on the back stretch. She made an early 3-wide bid to command entering the turn, and as you can see, this is a very easy victory with a 97 buyer speed figure. She's a proven commodity sprinting, and it's scary, but maybe we haven't seen her best yet. She's so lightly raced.
I know at a mile. She's going to cut back here to 6.5. She's been very good at 6. The distance should be no issue for her whatsoever. And you just talked about her progression from 2 to 3. Not that she did a ton wrong at 2. You can see after her dull showing against Tomorrow, she was put on the shelf. But man, just the way that she's come back, she's taking those improvements in each of the starts. But the way she's won, it's been effortlessly now in 3 starts this year. A lot to like about her, and I mentioned it earlier, Kazushi Kimura is going to climb aboard her for the first time.
Sweet Aztec has just been awesome recently. 4 consecutive wins. She actually beat Adair Manor going a mile in the Beholder, a distance that might be a little far even for Sweet Aztec. Her most recent race, the Rancho Bernardo, was basically a paid workout. Her second consecutive win at 1-10 odds. She beat 3 of these this day when she just got loose on a very easy lead for her and struts on home.
Yeah, 45 to the half is easy for her, considering her race before that at 6.5 at Los Al, which has that longer stretch, sub 44. And the way she just covers the ground here, she floats over it. You can tell she's not being asked in this race by Flavien Prat. Mentioned it. She's got a ton of speed, a ton of class. I think looking at her, to me, she's the horse to beat probably on paper. I think maybe there are cases to maybe take a shot against her if you like someone, but we're talking about 3 triple-digit fires in a row and just naturally quick and has a ton of stamina as well, as you mentioned. She can win at a mile, probably not her preferred distance. 6.5 is perfect.
We saw Anywho and Chismosa battle for the place, although no match for Sweet Aztec in that Rancho Bernardo video. Anywho was down on the inside. She had kind of a tough situation because she tried to push Sweet Aztec in the early part of that race, and that trip was never going to work out. I didn't like that she didn't change leads in the stretch, but she's an honest horse, and if Hope Road goes after Sweet Aztec, maybe someone else does the dirty work this time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the strategy here. Does she stay in here or the TCA? That would involve shipping. This, though, involves facing very nice horses as well. So it's not necessarily easier. There's just, I think, either race has their own hiccups and obstacles to face. My issue with her is you look at her wins or her really good performances, they've been against lesser than this group. We talked about the performance last time out. I just thought she was losing ground, and maybe that was part of the chasing the pace angle. But looking at her starts, she typically has run well when she's been pretty close to it. And we think the fractions, time form, the pace projections didn't say necessarily a fast pace, but it's going to be fast with this level of caliber and just these level of these fillies and mares in here. So I just don't know in terms of Trip Dan if this is going to be her preferred rate. I mean, she's going to be chasing some wicked fractions. I just don't think she's going to have the late punch.
I think the 5-1 Magic Filly has a lot of potential and has displayed a good amount of talent. It's just a question of whether this is too much too soon, making her graded stakes debut against the likes of Sweet Azteca and Hope Road. I mean, Hope Road beat her in her debut, but I thought that was an inside speed favoring track, and 1 Magic Filly might have been compromised. She came back to win her second start at Del Mar, and then she scored here by 7 with a really nice trip where she stalked outside a moderate pace and then just put the boots to them in the stretch. She's been working very well since this race for Phil D'Amato, and I think she can work out at least an outside stalking trip while clear of traffic.
Yeah, you mentioned the angle of this maybe being too much too soon. It's tough to say. The one thing I like is they're not going to change anything in terms of distance. This reminds me of a horse this past weekend at Remington Park, Most Wanted. It was a lot thrown at him, 4 starts in about the same amount of time, and it wasn't an issue for him. I'm not saying it will or won't be an issue for her, but the thing that I've been most impressed by, wherever she has been early, she has been somewhere in the end pretty close to it. I know she was well defeated by Hope Road in her debut, but look at her. She was towards the back of the pack and was closing in there. She got a middle sort of pack trip in that second career start. She ended up getting the job done. And when she was more forward last time out, she won easy. And Dan, the thing that's, is a little surprising are the fractions of those races. They have still been very, very quick. And I think she's versatile. So I sort of like her and I find her intriguing in the spot, but it's always going to come down to price.
Late kicking Kirsten Botch won this race last year after receiving an electric pace to attack. They ran her in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. She didn't break very well, fell far behind, and probably those horses were a little bit too tough. And in the Santa Monica, she was forced to stay closer to a very slow pace, and perhaps that compromised her kick. She's been away for a while. I got a chance to watch her last work on XBTV. She went in company with Anywho. I thought she went a little bit better than that horse, but it's a big ask off a long layoff coming from far back.
Huge layoff for her, and kind of go down the page. She's a mare that really doesn't know what a layoff is as you go down the page. In the past, she had a couple months off, and that was about it. So tough to say what she'll be able to do first off the shelf. They've put her right back in, though, to the race that you mentioned she was able to win last year. She's going to need the pace help. 6.5 furlongs, surprisingly, has worked out very well for her. At times, I feel like she's wanted to go further, but she's been very comfortable at these one-turn distances. And we'll see how the betting public respects her in this spot. She loves it at Santa Anita. Maybe, third or fourth in here is where I could see her off the layoff. If she had a race under her belt, I think we'd have a better gauge of where she is at as a 5-year-old.
The last horse to beat Sweet Azteca is the 7 Chismosa, who did so on New Year's Day and really seems to like Santa Anita. She won the Desert Storm her 3 starts back over this surface. We saw her try hard for second in the Rancho Bernardo, although no match for Sweet Azteca. She's another one that likes to race mid-pack or kick on in the stretch. She's often a little bit green with her lead changes. She probably has to run a career best and get a good setup to beat these, but she's beaten Sweet Azteca in the past.
And you look at her, they have not been easy on her in terms of stake, time and time again, even though she hasn't won some of them. You talked about the win, though, not too long ago. I thought it was a nice performance, but she obviously faced lesser than this group today. I thought it was a pretty soft group when it was all said and done, and she didn't fare too well at Los Al, but I did like the improved performance last time out at Del Mar, going 6.5 furlongs. For me, I just felt like, I don't know, she needs to show me more, Dan, and she hasn't at this point. And I don't know the trip, if it's going to work out for her. Something we talked about it. She can close from off of it, but other horses in here, when we go to the 5 in here, One Magic Filly, she could be closing. The 6 could be closing. It's just tough for me to use her in here.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Chillingworth. Sweet Azteca is simply the horse to beat. Her buyer speed figures and form speak for themselves. And it could be a really nice matchup against Hope Road and One Magic Filly knocking on the door as well.
Yeah, we have the same top 3 here, different order. I went with Sweet Azteca just because of her natural gate speed. She's very comfortable getting the lead in her races, and the fractions have been pretty wicked in some of them. I think, the top 2 are what makes the most sense, probably Sweet Azteca and Hope Road, but you go with One Magic Filly on top, and she's been very impressive from what we've seen so far. This is going to be a big test for her, but she's just taken every right step forward to this point.
Yeah, it's a big ask for One Magic Filly. I just think she can trip out if the 2 and the 3 battle it out. Maybe she sits behind and take advantage. But make sure you get your price, because she not only has to beat 1 good one, she has to beat 2. And that's never easy, stepping up into the graded stakes ranks for the first time. 3-2-5-6 for Ashley, 5-3-2-4 for me. I think this is going to be a very important prep for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. It's the Chillingworth at Santa Anita on Saturday. Good luck. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like and subscribe button below for more great DRF content, including Race of the Days, stakes previews, and lots more. You can find it right here.